all those actors had such a grasp on their characters, especially by the time I got there in season 4. They were all experts in their characters, and I would happily take notes from them about their characters. But sometimes they'd be like, "Oh, I wonder if I would say this instead of this," and I'd be like, "Yeah, you know what? If you feel like that, then absolutely we can make that change." So it was nice to have that process, and then of course on top of that, the camera people, they have to be excellent as well, because they're the ones who are capturing all this information, and they have to be able to be free to kind of like move back and forth and roll where they need to roll. So they were excellent at catching all that stuff as well, and so the whole thing is it's a big collaborative, beautiful process that I was very happy to be part of.
Ain't no party like a Scranton party, 'cause a Scranton party don't stop.
It wasn't so hard for writing because we always wrote the episodes long, which is something that not a lot of shows do. We would write episodes that would routinely end up around 29, 30 minutes, and it has to be 22 minutes, so you have to cut 7 minutes out of every episode, which why the editors were so good on that show. So you have to make a lot of choices. So there's so much conflict already in these characters that you always find a little way to kind of get everyone involved. It was when you had to like edit the episode and you had to cut out. There's so many little runners and little C stories that are on the cutting room floor that thankfully NBC started showing deleted scenes online, because I was just like, oh man, there's so much good stuff that we had to just cut because the H story needed the time to work. So
in the event of a crash, driver always protects his side first.
How much do you have to rewrite because of those impros?
It was a very fluid process. So we would have scripts written, fully figured out, everything was done, and then I think a lot of writers were very happy to let the actors play. Like Rainn Wilson's great at improvising, and John was really good, and of course Steve Carell is a master at it. So there were a lot of other, like even like a lot of other characters, like Angela Kinsey, she'd done a ton of improv, and you can tell like Oscar's done a lot of improv. So they were really good, really happy to go and play. But I think what the directors always did was we would get it scripted. We would get a version of it scripted, so we know we have what we need. And then if there's time to play, then we play. And then what's great about the collaborative process, having so many writers who are actors on the show, it kind of built a nice bridge between the writers and the actors that isn't something that happens all the time on most network shows, but it was nice to have that bridge because we can kind of go back and forth. So they would improvise something, and then they'd be like, oh, that would spark an idea with us, and they'd be like, oh, what about this? And then we try that, and then then eventually someone comes by and says, we don't have time to do anymore, and then we have to move on to the next scene.
And what about Paul Lieberstein? I read that he was a little shy and he didn't like to be a lot on screen, so you didn't write many jokes for him. Is that true?
Just take it.
Paul's great. I mean, I don't think he shied away from the camera. I thought he was really good on camera. I think it was more because he liked being in the writers' room. And then, of course, in season 5, he and Jen Salata were the showrunners, so he needed to be in the writers' room more often than being on set. So he kind of like wrote himself out of as many episodes as possible, because otherwise he wouldn't have any time in the writers' room. So I think later in the later seasons when he was showrunning, that's kind of what happened. He would kind of write himself out of things, and that's what led to Toby jumping over that fence and going to Costa Rica, because there's too much for him to do if he's on set all the time.
Were there many episodes or jokes that you have to like maybe pull back a little because they went too far and the network didn't like it?
Yeah, I mean, you get those notes all the time. There are times I don't remember anything specifically for that show, but I do. It's funny you talk about censorship, because the nice thing about being in a network show, you can just use the beeps, which is you can just but you can't use too many of them, because otherwise you get kind of lazy about it. I remember one of the episodes. I wasn't on set for it, but I wasn't on set for the actual shooting, but I was watching one of the cuts, and there was a beep in the beginning. I wish I remember which episode it was, but Michael comes out and he says something, and there's a beep, and it was the funniest thing. I was like, I can't believe Steve swore. And then Dean, who was editing the episode, was like, he didn't. I added that beat for emphasis. And I was like, oh, it's so funny. Like, it's just, you don't think about, like, that was a great thing about everyone on that show. Like, even like from the top to the bottom, like, everyone had funny bones, and they could just make choices that were really, really great.
I drove my car into a lake.
So take that, ass